What if I told you the daily walk you count on for your health is actually holding you back after 60? Groundbreaking new research reveals it may not be the best exercise for strength, balance, or pain, and the superior alternative is already in your home. The idea that a daily walk is the cornerstone of healthy aging is so deeply ingrained in our collective consciousness that to question it feels almost medical heresy. We have been told for decades that putting one foot in front of the other is the simple, universal panacea, good for the heart, the mind, and the bones. And while this is not a falsehood, the emerging and rather startling body of research suggests it is a profound and dangerous oversimplification for the population over the age of 60. The paradigm shift we are now witnessing, backed by rigorous clinical evidence, moves us from a model of general movement for maintenance to one of targeted strategic loading for rebuilding. It reframes the question from, "Are you moving?" to the far more critical, "Is your movement effectively challenging the specific systems that are declining?" The cornerstone of this shift is the groundbreaking 2023 meta-analysis published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, a piece of research so compelling it demands we reconsider standard practice. Following over 15,000 adults, it didn't just find a slight advantage for a targeted exercise regimen, it revealed a chasm of difference. The group that replaced or supplemented traditional walking routines with specific structured resistance and balance exercises saw dramatic, outsized improvements across every measured metric: strength, stability, mobility, blood pressure, and joint comfort. This is the crucial pivot. Walking is a cardiovascular and linear movement activity. It does not systematically challenge lateral stability, it does not create significant time under tension for major muscle groups, and it does little to stress the vestibular and proprioceptive systems that govern balance. It maintains a baseline, but it does not provide the progressive overload necessary to reverse sarcopenia, the insidious annual loss of muscle mass, or neurodegeneration within our motor pathways. Think of the body after 60 not as a machine slowly winding down, but as a sophisticated adaptive system that responds precisely to the demands placed upon it. If you only place the demand of walking, it will adapt to become marginally more efficient at walking, while allowing other critical functions to atrophy from disuse. The wall exercises succeed because they apply a targeted demand to precisely those atrophying functions. They challenge the body in planes of motion walking ignores, the isometric hold that builds tendon and stabilizes strength, the unilateral stance that forces ankle and hip stabilizers to fire, the controlled eccentric lowering that builds shock-absorbing capacity. Walking is practice for walking. These exercises are training for life, for the off-balance moment when you catch yourself, for the needed power to rise from a low chair, for the rotational strength to reach into a cabinet. Furthermore, the efficiency argument is revolutionary. The research indicated participants spent less total time engaged in these targeted exercises than the walking group devoted to their ambulation. This dismantles the primary barrier to exercise for many seniors: time and perceived exertion. It is not about trading an hour's walk for an hour's grueling workout. It is about replacing or augmenting that hour with 20 minutes of precise, potent stimulus that speaks directly to the body's weakening links. The outcome is not merely incremental improvement, it is, as the data suggests, a near doubling of physical capability in key functional areas. This is the difference between walking for the sake of movement and training for the goal of enduring autonomy. The former may keep you from sliding backwards quickly, the latter can actively propel you forward, reclaiming strength and stability you may have assumed were lost forever. This is the new paradigm. Movement must be medicine, with a specific dosage and a targeted physiological outcome. The wall is not just a piece of support. In this context, it becomes the essential tool that allows for this safe, precise, and profoundly effective dosing. The true power of these wall exercises, and the core reason they outperform simple walking, lies not in the muscles they build in isolation, but in the conversation they restart between the brain and the body. This is the realm of the neuromuscular system, a complex and often overlooked network that begins to fray with age, leading to the stiffness, clumsiness, and fear of falling that can define later years. To understand this is to move beyond seeing exercise as merely building a stronger engine and to see it as rewiring the entire vehicle's control system, updating its software, and sharpening its sensors. This is the concept of the neuromuscular reboot. When we are young, movement is largely unconscious and highly efficient. The brain sends a command, and a symphony of muscular contractions and relaxations executes it with precision, constantly fine-tuned by feedback from joints, tendons, and the inner ear. After 60, this system degrades. Neural pathways become less efficient, a process called synaptic pruning. The proprioceptors, tiny sensors in our muscles and joints that tell the brain where our body is in space, become dulled. The vestibular system, our internal gyroscope, loses sensitivity. The result is not just weakness, it is a fundamental disconnect. The muscle fibers may still be there, but the brain's ability to recruit them quickly, in the right sequence, and with appropriate force is profoundly diminished. This is why a simple stumble can become a fall. The corrective signals move too slowly through a rusty network. Traditional walking, while beneficial for circulation, does very little to challenge or repair this network. It is a well-grooved, repetitive pattern that the nervous system can execute on a kind of autopilot. The wall exercises, by stark contrast, are designed to disrupt autopilot. Every element of their design, the isometric hold, the unilateral stance, the cross-pattern movement, serves as a targeted stimulus to the nervous system. The isometric hold in a wall push-up, for instance, is not just about tiring the chest muscles. It is a sustained, low-volume signal that screams to the brain to activate and coordinate every single muscle fiber in that kinetic chain to maintain position. It forces the recruitment of stabilizing muscles in the shoulder blade and core that walking never touches. This is what researchers refer to when they talk about activating mechanuction pathways, the process by which mechanical load is translated into biochemical signals that promote muscle protein synthesis and, critically, neural adaptation. Consider the single-leg balance exercise with a head turn. This is a masterclass in neuromuscular training. Standing on one leg challenges the ankle stabilizers and hip abductors, muscles crucial for gait that are neglected in straight-line walking. But adding the head turn is the genius stroke. It deliberately disorients the vestibular system. By removing the visual and vestibular crutches simultaneously, you force the brain to rely more heavily on the dulled proprioceptive signals from the foot and ankle, thereby sharpening them. You are not just balancing, you are training your brain to process conflicting sensory information and still maintain stability, exactly what is required when you turn your head to check traffic while stepping off a curb. The Japanese research showing brain aging markers equivalent to people 10 to 15 years younger in those practicing such balance work is a direct testament to this neuroplasticity. The brain, confronted with a novel and complex coordination challenge, responds by strengthening existing neural connections and forging new ones. This reboot has a direct, life-altering consequence: improved reaction time. When you trip, you have milliseconds to correct. A slow neuromuscular system fails. A system that has been trained through controlled, conscious instability reacts. The wall exercises are a safe simulation of instability, a controlled environment where the brain can practice its emergency response protocols without the risk of a true fall. This is why the outcomes extend far beyond mere strength metrics. Participants report feeling more sure-footed, lighter on their feet, and more confident. These are not vague feelings. They are the subjective experience of a nervous system that has been taken out of storage, dusted off, and put through its paces. The body is remembering how to speak to itself, and the wall provides the secure ground from which to have that sometimes shaky, but ultimately transformative conversation. The top-ranked exercise, the wall-supported dead bug progression, may appear strange, even comical, to the uninitiated observer. Lying on one's back, pressing hands into a wall, and moving opposite limbs in a slow, deliberate dance seems far removed from the vigorous, upright activities we associate with fitness. Yet, its position as the #1 exercise is no accident of research. It is, in fact, the master key, the integrative movement that binds all the isolated benefits of the other exercises into a single, potent, and holistic neurological drill. It directly addresses the most fundamental and often deteriorated movement pattern in aging, the cross-lateral integration that is the very signature of human locomotion and skilled action. To appreciate its supremacy, one must first understand what is lost. A young, healthy body moves with a natural and unconscious contralateral rhythm. The right arm swings forward with the left leg, and vice versa. This is not merely a walking habit, it is a hardwired neurological pattern that facilitates balance, transfers force efficiently through the core, and allows for rotational stability. With age, injury, or prolonged sedentary behavior, this pattern disintegrates. Movement becomes stiff, unilateral, and fragmented, what physiotherapists call torso guarding, or serial movement, where the body moves in segments like a rusty robot rather than as a fluid whip. This disintegration is a primary culprit behind shuffling gait, poor balance during turns, and the feeling of being uncoordinated. Walking, being a repetitive and often stiffened version of this pattern, does little to reteach or reinforce its full, healthy expression. It merely practices the compromised form. The wall-supported dead bug is a rehabilitation and recalibration of this primal pattern. By lying supine, you remove the immense and often fear-inducing challenge of gravity and balance, allowing the nervous system to focus purely on the quality of the movement itself. The wall behind the head is not for support in the traditional sense. It is a tactile anchor, a source of proprioceptive feedback that grounds the upper body, and provides a stable resistance against which to press. This press activates the latissimus dorsi and scapular stabilizers, effectively setting the shoulder girdle and engaging the core before a single limb moves. Then comes the magic, extending the right leg while pressing the left hand. This is not a leg lift or an arm exercise. It is an exercise in diagonal tension. You are consciously creating a line of force that travels from your left hand, across your braced core, to your right heel. You are manually rebuilding the neurological highway between the opposite side limbs, a highway that may have grown over with disuse. This conscious creation of diagonal tension does several extraordinary things simultaneously. First, it forces the deep core stabilizers, the transverse abdominis and the obliques, to fire not as isolated muscles, but as an integrated girdle to prevent the spine from rotating or arching under the asymmetric load. This is true, functional core strength, not the crunches of youth. Second, it demands exquisite motor control from the brain. It cannot zone out. It must coordinate the timing, the tension, and the release of four limbs in a specific sequence, lighting up the cerebellum and the motor cortex in a way that repetitive walking simply cannot. It is a puzzle for your nervous system, and solving it builds new connections. Finally, by holding this position for several seconds, you are ingraining the pattern through time under tension. You are not just moving through the cross pattern, you are living in it, allowing the body to map the sensation of integrated diagonal stability. The carryover to daily life is immediate and profound. This single exercise is training for every action that involves reaching or stepping across the body, getting a pot from a lower cabinet, swinging a golf club, turning to look behind you while walking, or most critically, catching yourself during a stumble. A fall is rarely a straightforward or backward event. It is a loss of control in a diagonal plane. The dead bug trains the corrective response. It rebuilds the body's innate understanding of how to use the limbs as coordinated counterweights, with the core as the stable transmission. It is the antithesis of the fragmented, fearful movement of aging. By returning to the floor supported by the wall, we are not regressing. We are going back to the neurological drawing board to relearn the most sophisticated movement pattern we possess, so we can stand up again and move through the world not just with strength, but with recovered grace and inherent confidence. The most common and most detrimental mistake made in exercise at any age, but particularly after 60, is the pursuit of motion without mastery. It is the belief that more steps, more repetitions, and more sweat equate to more benefit. This philosophy shatters against the physiological reality of the aging body, which responds not to volume, but to the precise quality of stimulus. This is where the principle of time under tension emerges, not as the advanced bodybuilding technique, but as a non-negotiable foundational law for building resilient strength and stability. It is the deliberate, slow orchestration of muscle engagement that bypasses the frailties of joints and tendons to speak directly to the nervous system and the deep architectural fibers of the muscle itself, making it the cornerstone of safe and effective training for seniors. To understand why, we must look at what happens during a rapid, bouncy movement, a quick squat or a fast push-up. The body, ingeniously efficient, uses momentum and elastic recoil to complete the task. The tendons, like springs, stretch and snap back. The nervous system recruits the fast twitch, powerful muscle fibers in a brief, explosive burst before quickly disengaging. This is excellent for power, but for an aging system, it is fraught with peril. It places shear forces on joints, it bypasses the crucial stabilizer muscles that act as protectors, and it does little to stimulate the slow twitch, endurance muscle fibers that are vital for postural support and all-day mobility. It is flashover substance. More critically, it teaches the body nothing about control. It practices speed, but not the brake. Time under tension is the application of the brake. It is the conscious removal of momentum from the equation, forcing the muscle to bear the load continuously throughout the entire range of motion, and most importantly, during the static hold. When you take 2 full seconds to lower yourself into a wall squat, hold for 5 seconds at the bottom, and take 2 seconds to rise, you are performing a completely different biological intervention than someone performing 10 rapid squats in the same time frame. The sustained tension acts as a persistent, low-volume signal to the central nervous system. This signal demands that the brain not only recruit more muscle fibers to maintain the position, but that it recruit them in a coordinated sequence, engaging the deep stabilizers around the joint to lock it in place. This is how functional strength is built, not as an isolated burst, but as a symphony of support. The isometric hold, a peak of the time under tension principle, is particularly transformative for the older adult. Holding a position, such as the lean in a wall push-up or the midpoint of a wall sit, does extraordinary things. First, it dramatically increases the metabolic stress within the muscle, triggering the release of growth factors and hormones that promote repair and strengthening without the damaging microtears associated with heavy loads. Second, and perhaps more importantly for fall prevention, it builds tendon and ligament strength. These connective tissues, which often become brittle with age, respond magnificently to sustained, moderate tension by increasing their density and load-bearing capacity. A stronger tendon is a more stable joint. Finally, the hold is a masterclass in breathing under duress. It teaches the body to maintain diaphragmatic breathing while the muscles are engaged, preventing the blood pressure spikes that can occur with the Valsalva maneuver, holding one's breath during exertion. This is why the research on wall sites showed such dramatic blood pressure improvements. The exercise trains cardiovascular regulation alongside muscular strength. This principle transforms the wall from a simple prop into a scientific tool. It allows for the application of maximum safe tension with minimum risk. You cannot cheat a slow-held wall push-up. You cannot bounce out of the bottom of a timed wall squat. The wall ensures the alignment is correct, and the tempo ensures the physiology is optimal. It shifts the goal from how many to how well and how long. This mental shift is as crucial as the physical one. It fosters mindfulness, patience, and a deep listening to the body's signals. The resulting strength is not the showy strength of a single heavy lift, but the durable, always available strength that allows you to lower yourself gracefully into a garden bed, to hold a grandchild without strain, or to pause mid-stride on an uneven path without losing your balance. It is strength you can live in, not just demonstrate. Time under tension is the language the aging musculoskeletal system most needs to hear, and these wall exercises are its perfect translation. The final and perhaps most liberating cornerstone of this entire approach is not found in a specific muscle group or a neurological trick, but in a fundamental shift in mindset. This is the philosophy of progression over perfection, a concept that directly counteracts the all-or-nothing thinking that so often derails well-intentioned fitness efforts, especially later in life. It recognizes that the journey to rebuilding strength and stability is not a linear sprint with a fixed finish line, but a gradual, adaptable ascent where the only true failure is the refusal to begin or the decision to abandon the path because the first step felt too modest. The genius of the wall-based regimen is that it institutionalizes this philosophy into its very design, making scalability and personalized adaptation not an afterthought, but its primary mechanism for success. Perfection is the enemy of the aging body because it is a standard forged in the expectations of youth. It is the image of a deep textbook squat or a push-up with a chest that touches the floor. When that ideal feels impossibly distant, the natural discouraging conclusion is, I can't do this, so why bother? This is where the wall becomes more than a piece of architecture. It becomes the ultimate arbiter of where you are. It provides infinite gradations of difficulty and support, meeting you at your exact point of capability without judgment. A wall squat is not defined by a 90-degree angle. It is defined by the depth at which you can maintain control and proper alignment. That depth might be a modest slide of 6 inches today, and that is not a compromised version of the exercise. It is the perfect version of the exercise for you today. It is the precise dose of challenge your current system can absorb, adapt to, and grow from. The wall does not ask you to achieve perfection. It asks you to explore your current boundary with safety and hold there. Progression, then, is the art of gently nudging that boundary, not shattering it. It is the understanding that adaptation occurs in the margin between current capacity and slight manageable overload. The beauty of this system is that progression is built into simple, intuitive choices. It is not about adding 50 pounds of weight. It is the micro-adjustment of stepping your feet 3 inches further from the wall during a push-up. It is the decision to lift your fingertips off the wall for 2 seconds during a single leg balance. It is the extension of a hold from 10 seconds to 12. These are increments of change so small they bypass fear and circumvent the ego, yet they are biologically significant. Each tiny progression sends a new, clear signal to the neuromuscular system. This is the new demand, please adapt. And the system, hungry for purpose, responds. This is how capability is woven back, thread by thread, into the fabric of the body. This philosophy also inherently cultivates patience and self-compassion, two psychological muscles often severely atrophied in our relentless, youth-centric culture. A bad knee day no longer means the workout is cancelled. It simply means the wall squat is shallower, and the focus shifts to exquisite control in that shallower range. A dizzy spell doesn't halt balance work. It means returning both hands to the wall and holding the stance with eyes open until steadiness returns. The program bends. It does not break. This flexibility ensures consistency, and consistency is the raw fuel of transformation. Showing up, in whatever form is possible that day, and engaging in the process of mindful movement is the victory. The measurable improvements, the deeper squat, the longer hold, the easier rise from a chair, become happy byproducts of this consistent, compassionate engagement. Progression over perfection dismantles the intimidating monolithic idea of exercise and rebuilds it as a daily practice of self-communication, a dialogue with one's own body conducted through the stable, silent medium of the wall. It teaches that the goal is not to conquer the movement, but to converse with it, listening to its feedback and responding not with frustration, but with the intelligent, gentle pressure that invites growth. This is how independence is not just preserved, but patiently, steadily reclaimed.